quelli che poi in fondo hanno tutti gli animali, solamente noi abbiamo il vantaggio di avere un raziocinio maggiore.
To generations of movie lovers, he was the giant, bearded brawler who drank tons of milk, gave bad guys a run for their money, and made millions laugh with his spectacularly clumsy yet effective fighting style. Bud Spencer's larger-than-life screen presence was the stuff of legend and childhood nostalgia. But the life of Carlo Pedersoli, the man behind the mustache and the massive frame, was filled with far more than slapstick comedy. The details of his real life, from his harrowing wartime childhood to his shocking political ambitions, reveal a story that is far more complex and disturbing than the family-friendly image he projected on screen. The complex foundations of Bud Spencer. The man who would become Bud Spencer was born Carlo Pedersoli on October 31, 1929, in the Santa Lucia neighborhood of Naples, into a family of considerable wealth and social standing. His father, Alessandro Pedersoli, was an industrialist who owned a successful furniture manufacturing factory that had been founded by his ancestor, Alessandro Pedersoli, in the 19th century. The family's prosperity afforded young Carlo a comfortable upbringing, surrounded by the privileges that came with being born into a family of industrialists. He was educated in prestigious schools, and his future seemed assured. But the escalating horrors of World War II would soon shatter that security and force him to confront a harsh new reality that would shape the rest of his life. In 1943, a devastating bombardment of Naples struck a direct blow to the Pedersoli family's fortunes. The tragedy completely flattened the family's primary asset, the industrial furniture factory that had been the source of their wealth and status for generations. The destruction was absolute, and the loss of the family business caused sudden financial instability that left the family scrambling to survive. They were forced to flee their ancestral home, leaving behind the only life they had ever known. Seeking refuge from the constant war threats, the family permanently uprooted and moved to Rome in 1940, when Carlo was just 11 years old. This rapid displacement into a war-torn capital disrupted his youth, exposing him to the structural instability of a city under siege and the acute hardship of wartime food rationing. The Rome he moved to was a city on the brink, its streets filled with refugees and its buildings scarred by the war. Carlo witnessed the collapse of the world around him, and the experience left an indelible mark on him. Despite the chaos of war and displacement, Carlo displayed a special intellectual ability that set him apart from his peers. Because of an exceptionally high aptitude, he skipped multiple grade levels and completed his rigorous high school education ahead of his peers, graduating with honors at the age of 16 in 1946. The achievement was remarkable, but it was just the beginning of his academic journey. He passed the entrance exam for the Sapienza University of Rome and enrolled as one of the youngest chemistry students in Italian history. His passion for chemistry burned bright, and he dreamed of a future as a scientist. But his studies were soon interrupted by another family crisis. Following the war, Italy's economy was in ruins, and his father's business was gone. The family had lost everything, and survival required desperate measures. In January 1947, the family migrated across the Atlantic to Brazil, hoping to rebuild their lives. Carlo traveled with them, leaving behind his studies and his dreams. This move completely halted his university education and forced him into manual labor to help support his relatives. He worked as a librarian and as an assembly line worker in Rio de Janeiro, a humbling fall from grace for the son of an industrialist. The work was monotonous, the pay was meager, and the experience was a brutal reminder of how quickly fortune could turn. After 2 years in South America, Carlo returned to Italy in 1948 and made a pivotal decision that would shape the trajectory of his life. He abandoned his passion for chemistry, citing the grueling laboratory schedules that clashed with his athletic ambitions. He began studying law at Sapienza University, a choice that was both strategic and practical. The study of law allowed him to split his time between independent academic work and his intense swimming training, which had become his primary focus. Despite the immense demands on his time and energy, Carlo excelled in his studies. The experience taught him discipline, logic, and the ability to think critically under pressure. To navigate the complex world of international sport and business, Carlo taught himself to communicate fluidly across cultures, achieving fluency in 5 distinct languages: Italian, English, Spanish, French, and German. He later added functional Portuguese from his time in Brazil. This intellectual capacity was a stark contrast to the simple, brawling man he would later portray on screen. He was a man of deep intellect, a scholar who could debate law and politics as easily as he could swim laps in a pool. One of the biggest struggles in his early life was that he never felt like he truly fit in. At school, people saw him as nothing more than a strong athlete. But among athletes, many looked down on him because he loved studying and was training to become a lawyer. He felt stuck between both worlds and didn't fully belong in either. At the same time, his family expected him to follow a respectable career in law or diplomacy. But he didn't want that life. Choosing a different path created tension with his family and pushed him to leave behind their wealthy social circle in search of a life on his own. Carlo Pedersoli had everything needed for a successful and ordinary life. He was smart, disciplined, and a talented athlete. But the pain of growing up during the war, the loss of his family's wealth, and his desire to leave his past behind took his life in a completely different direction. His Olympic success and education were only the beginning. Before long, he would become one of the most famous movie stars in the world. The physical toll of excellence. Bid Spencer wasn't just a brilliant student. He was also an outstanding athlete who would go on to become one of Italy's greatest swimmers. On September 19, 1950, he made history at the Sasso swimming pool in Italy by becoming the first Italian swimmer to finish the 100-meter freestyle in under 1 minute. He completed the race in 59.5 seconds, a huge achievement that made the entire country proud. It was a major moment for Italian swimming and proved that Carlo was one of the nation's brightest young sports stars. Standing at 6 feet 4 inches tall, he had the perfect build for swimming, and he gave everything he had to the sport. To stay in top shape, Carlo followed an incredibly demanding training routine. Every day, he swam for miles without the advanced equipment athletes use today. He pushed himself harder and harder, refusing to take shortcuts. His workouts also included intense bodyweight exercises, weighted push-ups, and pull-ups to build and maintain his strength. Every training session left him exhausted, but he believed success only came through hard work and sacrifice. Years later, he said that sports taught him humility, because success never lasts forever. As he explained, one day you're the best, and the next day someone else is better than you. In 1952, Carlo reached one of the biggest moments of his career when he competed at the Summer Olympics in Helsinki, Finland. The Olympics were every athlete's dream, and he had spent years preparing for that opportunity. He fought through several tough qualifying races to reach the semifinals of the 100-meter freestyle. He recorded a time of 58.8 seconds in the heats and followed it with 58.9 seconds in the semifinal. The competition was extremely difficult, and athletes from around the world were chasing the same dream. Carlo knew millions of people back home were cheering him on, and he carried that responsibility with him every time he stepped into the pool. Although he didn't win a medal, reaching the semi-finals proved that he could compete against the very best swimmers in the world. That experience gave him confidence that stayed with him for the rest of his life. 4 years later, he earned another chance to represent Italy at the 1956 Summer Olympics in Melbourne, Australia. By then, years of training and competition had started to wear down his body, but he refused to give up. The trip to Australia was long and exhausting, taking weeks and crossing several time zones. Even so, he once again reached the semi-finals of the 100-meter freestyle. He swam 58.5 seconds in the heats and 59 seconds in the semi-final. It was another impressive performance and showed just how determined he was. But the journey had taken a heavy toll. The long travel, jet lag, changing weather, and the limited support provided by Italy's underfunded swimming federation made the competition even more difficult. Carlo kept pushing through the pain, but the years of demanding training were beginning to catch up with him. At the same time, Carlo was also playing professional water polo for SS Lazio. In 1954, his team won the Italian national championship, adding another major achievement to his career. A year later, he helped Italy win a gold medal at the 1955 Mediterranean Games in Barcelona. Water polo during the 1950s was an incredibly rough sport. Players wrestled each other underwater, where referees often couldn't see what was happening. Every match was a physical battle, and Carlo often left the pool covered in injuries. Over time, he developed lasting joint pain, bruised ribs, and breathing problems that stayed with him for the rest of his life. Even so, he rarely complained. To him, those injuries were proof of everything he had sacrificed for the sport he loved. By 1957, Carlo had reached the peak of his athletic career. He was famous, admired, and surrounded by fans. But instead of enjoying the attention, he started feeling empty inside. The fame no longer made him happy. Expensive cars, public praise, and celebrity status didn't give his life the meaning he was looking for. He felt that living such a comfortable life was making him weak. So, in a decision that shocked almost everyone, Carlo retired from competitive sports at just 27 years old. He walked away from everything he had worked so hard to achieve because he wanted to challenge himself in a completely different way. He moved to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where almost nobody knew who he was. Instead of living like an Olympic star, he took a low-paying job on a factory assembly line. The work was repetitive, physically demanding, and far removed from the life he had known before. It left his hands sore and put constant strain on his back. Later, he moved to Caracas, Venezuela, where he became a construction foreman working on parts of the Pan American Highway. For long periods, he lived in simple camps deep in the South American wilderness and rainforests. He managed large construction crews, worked in extreme heat and thick mud, and faced tropical diseases while trying to complete difficult projects. Later, he also worked as a test driver for Alfa Romeo, driving high-performance vehicles. Every step of this journey was his way of leaving behind the comfort and privilege he had grown up with. He wanted to discover who he really was, far away from fame, and those experiences would eventually lead him to the acting career that made him a legend. The accidental icon. Becoming a movie star was never part of Carlo Pedersoli's plan. In fact, for many years, he tried to stay away from the film industry, even though he had many opportunities to join it. His father-in-law, Giuseppe Amato, was one of Italy's most respected film producers and had worked on famous movies like La Dolce Vita. Because of that connection, acting opportunities came his way again and again. But Carlo wasn't interested. He had worked hard to build a reputation as an educated man and an Olympic athlete, and he worried that acting would make people forget everything else he had achieved. It wasn't until 1967, when he was struggling with serious financial problems, that he finally agreed to take a movie role. That decision would completely change the course of his life. Director Giuseppe Colizzi was looking for someone with a powerful physical presence to appear in his spaghetti western God Forgives. I don't. Carlo stood 6 feet 4 inches tall and weighed more than 260 pounds, making him the perfect choice for the role. But he wasn't proud of accepting the job. He had a law degree, had competed in the Olympics, and was known as an intelligent and accomplished man. The thought of people seeing him as nothing more than a big, tough fighter on screen made him uncomfortable. To protect his reputation, he decided not to use his real name. Instead, he created the stage name Bud Spencer. At first, the name was simply a joke and a way to separate his acting career from the life he had built before. He never imagined that the name would become famous all over the world. The making of the film was far from smooth. Just one day before filming started, a young actor named Mario Girotti joined the cast after another actor broke his foot and had to leave the production. Girotti would later become famous under the name Terence Hill. He was quiet, polite, hardworking, and greatly respected Carlo's achievements as an athlete. Although the two men were very different, they got along almost immediately. Terence carefully studied his scripts every night, while Carlo preferred to rely on instinct and spend time relaxing with the cast and crew after filming. Director Giuseppe Colizzi quickly realized that their different personalities worked perfectly together on screen. Their friendship and natural chemistry became the heart of the movie, making it the first of 18 films they would make together over the following decades. Even though their movies were light-hearted family comedies, making them was physically exhausting. Many of the famous fight scenes involved complicated choreography that had to be performed over and over again until every movement looked right. Carlo did many of his own stunts, regularly pulling muscles, falling hard, and sometimes suffering accidental injuries during filming. The fights looked funny on screen and made audiences laugh, but they required careful timing and placed enormous strain on his body. Despite the pain, his role as the gentle giant, who always stood up for the weak, made him one of the biggest movie stars in Europe. Long before he became famous as an actor, Carlo had another passion that many people never knew about. He loved music and enjoyed writing songs. In 1961, he signed a professional contract with RCA Records as a songwriter and lyricist. He wrote songs and lyrics for several well-known Italian singers, including Ornella Vanoni and Nico Fidenco. During that time, he also worked with the brothers Guido and Maurizio De Angelis, better known as Oliver Onions. They would later compose many of the unforgettable theme songs and soundtracks used in his movies. However, not everyone in the music industry took him seriously. Because of his huge size and athletic appearance, many people found it difficult to believe he could also be a talented songwriter. Carlo often had to work twice as hard to prove that he was more than just a big, strong man. However, even after becoming one of Europe's biggest film stars, Carlo continued looking for new challenges outside the entertainment industry. The dangerous passions. After becoming a movie star and building a successful business career, Carlo Pedersoli had every reason to slow down. But that was never the kind of person he was. Known around the world as Bud Spencer, he was always looking for something new to learn, or a new challenge to overcome. His interests went far beyond acting and business. He loved flying, sailing, and understanding how machines worked. Whatever caught his attention, he threw himself into it with the same determination that had once made him an Olympic athlete. His love of aviation began in 1972 while filming the comedy All the Way Boys. During production, he had to sit in the cockpit of an airplane, and the experience immediately fascinated him. Flying gave him a feeling of freedom that he had never experienced before. He became interested not only in being in the air, but also in learning how aircraft worked. Instead of treating flying as an occasional hobby, he committed himself to serious training. He earned commercial pilot licenses for both airplanes and helicopters in Italy, Switzerland, and the United States. Over the years, he spent thousands of hours flying on his own, constantly improving his skills and learning everything he could about aviation. Flying was exciting, but it also came with real dangers. Carlo often flew small, single-engine aircraft through mountains and bad weather, where poor visibility made every flight more difficult. On more than one occasion, mechanical problems forced him to make emergency landings. Even so, he never lost his passion for flying. He later admitted that the risk was part of what attracted him. Every challenge gave him another chance to test himself and prove that he could stay calm under pressure. At the same time, he was never careless. He carefully studied every aircraft he flew, learned how each system worked, and believed that good preparation was the best way to avoid accidents. His love for aviation naturally became part of his business life. After founding Mistral Air in 1984, Carlo didn't simply run the airline from an office. Because he had so much flying experience, he often flew cargo routes himself to better understand what his pilots and employees experienced every day. He believed that a good leader should never expect others to do work that he wasn't willing to do himself. Managing an airline was far from easy. Rising fuel prices, financial pressure, strict safety inspections, and the responsibility of keeping passengers and crews safe created constant stress. Carlo understood that every decision he made could affect many lives, and he took that responsibility very seriously. His curiosity didn't stop with airplanes. Carlo also enjoyed inventing new products and solving everyday problems. Drawing on his education in law and chemistry, he designed several practical inventions and officially registered a number of patents. One of his best-known ideas was a special lock for travel suitcases that was designed to make luggage more difficult to open or tamper with while passing through airports. He also created a prototype for a disposable electric toothbrush many years before similar products became widely available in stores. These inventions showed another side of Carlo's personality. He wasn't just creative on a movie set. He also enjoyed finding practical solutions to real-world problems. Unfortunately, getting people to take his inventions seriously wasn't always easy, because millions of people only knew him as Bud Spencer, the funny giant from the movies. Many companies struggled to see him as an inventor. Some manufacturers ignored his ideas, while others reportedly copied or changed parts of his designs without giving him credit or paying him for his work. Carlo found that deeply frustrating. He had earned a law degree, competed in 2 Olympic Games, built successful businesses, and developed original inventions. Yet many people still judged him only by the characters he played on screen. His love of transportation didn't end in the air. Carlo was just as fascinated by the sea. He bought a fully working ocean-going tugboat and personally took command of it during difficult trips across the Mediterranean. At times, he faced rough storms that put both the vessel and everyone on board at risk. Safely controlling a tugboat in those conditions required experience, careful planning, and a deep understanding of the sea. For Carlo, it felt like a natural continuation of the connection to water that had begun years earlier when he was an Olympic swimmer and professional water polo player. Yet even after his many achievements, his biggest surprise was still ahead. His decision to enter politics would divide many of his fans and become one of the most debated chapters of his life. The disturbing entry into politics and his final words. The final chapter of Carlo Pedersoli's life turned out to be one of the most surprising and controversial. In 2005, at the age of 75, the former Olympic swimmer, movie star, and successful businessman made a decision that shocked many of his fans. After spending most of his life away from politics, he suddenly decided to enter it. The choice divided public opinion, damaged his image in the eyes of many supporters, and became one of the most debated moments of his life. That same year, Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi personally invited Spencer to run in regional elections. Berlusconi was one of the most well-known and controversial political figures in Italy. Before entering politics, he had built a powerful media business, and he understood the value of having a famous and trusted public figure on his side. Bud Spencer had been loved by millions of Italians for decades, and Berlusconi believed his popularity could help attract voters. After years of staying away from political life, Carlo eventually accepted the offer. Berlusconi convinced him that he could make a real difference by serving the public, and Carlo decided to give politics a chance. Spencer officially ran as a candidate for the Lazio Regional Council under Berlusconi's conservative Forza Italia party. The announcement surprised many people. Fans who had admired him for years struggled to understand why he had chosen to support such a controversial political leader. His opponents quickly criticized the campaign, accusing Berlusconi of using celebrities to win votes instead of focusing on real political issues. They argued that Spencer's popularity was being used to distract attention from the government's growing corruption scandals. For the first time in many years, Carlo found himself at the center of harsh public criticism instead of public admiration. When reporters asked why he had decided to enter politics so late in life, Carlo answered with his usual sense of humor. At a press conference in Rome, he joked, "In my life, I've done everything. There are only 3 things I haven't been: a ballet dancer, a jockey, and a politician. Since the first 2 are impossible, I'll try politics." The comment made many people smile because it sounded exactly like the Bud Spencer they knew. But as the campaign continued, the jokes disappeared. The pressure of politics proved much greater than he had expected. At 75 years old, he spent long days traveling across the Lazio region, attending political events, meeting voters, and giving speeches. Public opinion remained deeply divided. Some people respected his decision and believed he genuinely wanted to help his country, while others felt he was allowing himself to be used for political purposes. As the election went on, Carlo's public image began to change. Many longtime fans were disappointed by his decision to stand alongside Berlusconi and his party. For some supporters, it was difficult to separate the actor they loved from the political campaign they strongly disagreed with. The experience also affected Carlo personally. He spent long periods away from his family, and the demands of campaigning added to the health problems that naturally come with age. When the election results were announced, Carlo suffered a clear defeat. He failed to win a seat on the regional council, and his political career ended almost as soon as it had begun. Looking back, he admitted that entering politics had been a mistake. He later suggested that his fame had been used more for political campaigning than for meaningful public service. The experience taught him that being loved as an actor did not automatically make someone successful in politics. After the election, he stayed away from political life completely and spent the rest of his years focusing on his family and reflecting on everything he had experienced throughout his remarkable life. By then, the years had begun to catch up with him physically. Carrying a large frame for most of his life, along with decades of demanding sports, stunt work, and physical labor, had placed enormous strain on his body. In his later years, he dealt with serious mobility problems, poor circulation, and constant tiredness. He gradually stepped away from public appearances and preferred spending quiet time at home with his loved ones. On June 27, 2016, Carlo Pedersoli passed away at the age of 86 in a hospital in Rome, surrounded by his close family. His eldest son, Giuseppe Pedersoli, later told reporters that his father passed away peacefully and without fear. According to his family, Carlo's final word was a simple one, grazie, meaning thank you. It was a quiet ending for a man who had lived an extraordinary life, filled with success, failure, adventure, and constant reinvention. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the next video on your screen, like this video, and subscribe to our channel for more updates.